Hi, I'm Jeffrey Smith from SEO Ultimate Pros, the creators of the SEO Ultimate Pro WordPress SEO plugin. Today, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of the features so that you can see exactly how this plugin works. What you'll notice is you have two options. You have the SEO Settings option at the top of your admin bar, and you also have the SEO option on the side, which allows you to see the modules. Now, essentially, modules are like individual plugins, and the way they work is you can either enable or disable them from this portion of the website, as well as manage the various settings inside of each one of the plugins, aka modules. Now in the first module, it's the Deep Link Juggernaut. What this allows you to do is to create internal links by creating a series of rules so that instead of having to manually link keywords and key phrases to different destinations, you can actually set a phrase or phrases and then assign it to link to a specific page, post, or post type. Sitemaps are pretty straightforward. We have HTML and XML sitemaps. The 404 monitor allows you to determine if your site has any 404 errors or broken links, either within the site or from outbound links coming to the site. The Alt Attribute Editor is designed to optimize your images so that search engines can understand exactly what those images are. So if it's a picture of a butterfly, you want to have the alternative attribute that says butterfly, for example. In the next module, the Canonicalizer, this allows you to essentially add the link rel canonical tag that essentially says, if there's more than one page in your site that has a similar topic, you'll want to choose a preferred page, in which case you can use the Canonicalizer to say, don't rank these other pages, or essentially pay attention to them, pass along all the ranking factor to the one that I select. And that's what the Canonicalizer allows you to do. And the great thing about that as well is it's global. So that means that we can literally go to one page and manage all of the pages, posts, and post types instead of having to individually go into a page and add it, save changes, and so on. Now, the Code Inserter module allows you to add HTML scripts or third-party scripts to your websites, header, the footer, above or below content areas. This is useful if you need to add like Google tracking or analytics or Google Tag Manager code to a page. The Code Inserter is for the global, for every page in the site. The Code Inserter Plus, which is the next module, allows you to actually add it to pages, posts, or post types individually. So this is a great tool for conversion tracking and all kinds of cool things you can add. Contact forms, scripts, etc. The next module is the file editor, and this essentially allows you to edit your .htaccess file. Now, it's obviously for more advanced users. You don't want to flub that up, because if you do, it can actually take your site down. We have included the file editor since the very first version of SEO Ultimate back in 2008. The next module we call Semantic Tags, and so this is a really cool feature that allows you, instead of the typical WordPress tags, by adding semantic tags, these are tags that will essentially validate in Google's structured data testing tool. And so it's just a way to disambiguate your content. And what I mean by that is it just allows you to really be specific, so that if you're talking about a bar, like such as a bar or restaurant, you can specify that versus a physical bar, like a piece of iron. So adding more tags to your content to disambiguate or to make it more clear is what the Semantic Tags module allows you to do. And this is a feature that you can do inside of any page or post. You have that tag option. Next, we've added something that's called the Import-Export module. So essentially, we have three modules in the Import-Export Manager, which I'll show you briefly. But essentially, instead of having to remain inside of the dashboard to make the changes, you can actually export it to a CSV file, optimize your content from that CSV file, and then re-import that into the database here. So it's extremely convenient, and it will save you a lot of time. The next module is the Title Tag Rewriter. This allows you to mass edit your title tags, and the Meta Description Editor allows you to mass edit your meta descriptions. The Meta Robots Tags Editor, pretty straightforward, allows you to edit your Meta Robots tags globally for pages, posts, and post types. I'll show you a little bit more about that. The Miscellaneous Module is where we've combined all the different group settings that literally don't warrant their own modules. So we're going to do a walkthrough in a second, but I just wanted to give you an overview of the kinds of things we're going to be looking at. The Nofollow'manager allows you to actually add a nofollow tag. And so these are more advanced features, but they're typical now. If you're familiar with SEO, this is very commonplace, but we do have training that we're going to showcase for each one of these modules as well. But this is another feature that will allow you to mass edit things so that you literally don't have to go through page by page and make those changes. Open Graph Plus is where you can actually mass edit your images, your meta descriptions, and titles that you'd like to appear next to your social images. And I'm really excited about the last two modules. We actually created the Deep Silo Builder way back, and I think it was 2009. At this time, we've actually combined that with SEO Ultimate. So what this will allow you to do is to create thematically relevant content by grouping them into what we call content silos. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but what I wanted to show you is that we do have the deep silo builder now inside of SEO Ultimate Pro. And also, we have upgraded from micro formats, which is RDFA, which is a more generic form of adding a schema, to JSON LD. And we've essentially increased the library to 22 different types of schema. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. First up, let's take a look at the deep link Juggernaut. The cool thing about this module is that it allows you to simply add anchor text, choose a destination, and then if you would like, you can actually give the title, and you hover over the link, a name. Okay, so here's how it works. Choose your anchor text, you choose a destination, and then if you wish, you can actually change the title attribute, which is basically when you hover over the link, the title and the link, that is what this attribute means. And so let's just assume that I wanted to hyperlink the word local. So anytime the word local appears on a page, I could actually choose a destination. I can actually use a URL, or I can just ask SEO Ultimate Pro to look for potential destination pages that contain this query. And so in which case, it did find that I have a number of pages, like local business. That's a post that would be ideal for this. So I choose whatever destination I'd like. I can either add a URL or choose from the list, and then I'll just use the same phrase there. Now in which case, if I were to save this, anytime the word local is mentioned, I can then choose how it's linked. I can choose what types of media types that I'd like to allow. So if I don't want it to be in the media, if I only want pages or posts or specific post types, I can do that. I can choose a different option if I would like to allow or disallow self-linking, so that if you're on a page, do you want it to link to itself? Probably not, but you could actually allow this option here. So if it's a canonical, for example, and it's linking somewhere else, this is fine. Quantity restrictions. I could say that I don't want more than 5 auto links on the page. I don't want to link to the same anchor text more than one time on the page. If there's a conflict where there's 2 phrases that have similar destinations, I can basically rein it in so that it doesn't link to the same destination page. Additionally, I can do some other things like add dampening effects, or I can essentially make sure that I'm not providing hyperlinks inside of my H tags or anything that I would like inside of a builder. If there's a prefix that's being used for builders, you'd want to put that in here so that it wouldn't break your syntax or HTML anywhere, or essentially add links where you didn't want them. You can also determine if you only want links to link within a certain category or tag or semantic tag. So if I have a semantic tag, for example, that's selected, I only want links to hyperlink for that. That's a really powerful feature, because this means that instead of bleeding that ranking factor or those links everywhere else that aren't essentially thematically relevant, I can really rein it in to determine that I only want it to link within a specific topic. And that's what we were referring to as siloing. So after that, I would save my changes. Those rules are done, and I can also use deep links for link masks. Now we can get into that a little later, but I just wanted to sort of show you sort of how this module works. Next, we go to the Sitemap module. It's pretty straightforward. You can actually determine what pages you want to block here. You can determine if you want to include categories or tags and authors inside the sitemap. But if I click here, you'll see that this is my XML sitemap, which I can submit to Google. Or I have an HTML sitemap as well. One way you can do this, if you can select certain pages that you don't want to have linked or something of that nature, and you could actually block those pages by just pasting them here. You can add pages to the sitemap from just adding the URL here. It's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. Include categories, tags, or authors, and after that you would simply save your changes and you're done. Next up, the 404 monitor. Now this is where you'll find if there's broken links in your site, and it will show you if there are links that are coming from either inside the site or outside of the site. At this point, you have some settings where you can basically only log these types of 404 errors that are generated by spiders or by referring URLs. So it's pretty straightforward. This is going to allow you to also ignore certain URLs if you want to. If you're familiar with that, if you're a developer and you had some things that you don't want to have showing up as being broken strings in the 404 monitor, you can exclude them there. Now, we had talked about alt attributes. So this is the alt attribute editor. What it is I'm looking at the media library, and you'll notice that we have two additional fields that accompany each image. And so we have the alternative text and the caption text. So in this area, we can actually put whatever it is. So I could say that this is the SEO Ultimate Pro logo. Save my changes. Now whenever that logo is used, it will make sure that that image now has the appropriate alt attribute. As you can see here, what I added there, now that alternative text is now entered into the image. And so you can see that it is essentially to describe the purpose of the image. So you can actually do this by mass editing and going down and on one page or post, what I like to do is typically for screen options, I will set my options to like 200 or whatever that might be. So if I do have a larger group of images to select from, I can at least get them all on a page and simply go down and populate my alternative images. Next, we have the global canonical manager. And we had talked about this before. So if I have an article page and I wanted to make the canonical page the article category, for example. So for canonicals, this is once again, this allows you to simply choose the most appropriate page where you want to consolidate ranking factors, so that if the article page really wasn't the preferred destination for search engines to give weight to, then you could choose what URL you wanted to assign the relevance for this page to. And that's how the canonical manager works. It also works across pages, categories, tags, different types of post types. And so this really does provide you with really granular control on how you want to implement the canonical tag. Okay, next up, moving forward, we have the code inserter. Now this is a module that we created that allows you to add code globally to every page or post within a site. And so if I had something that I wanted to add to the header tag of every page in my site, I would simply add that code here. Similarly, in the above or below content area or in the footer, I could also add that. Now, certain instances where if you wanted to add a confirmation code for your Google Webmaster Tools or for analytics, this is the perfect location to add that code. Now, the only difference between the code inserter and the code inserter plus is the code inserter is for every page in the site, whereas the code inserter plus is for specific pages, posts, or post types within the site. And so in this case, if I wanted to add a Google Tag Manager to just this page in the footer, this is where I would come to do that in the Code Inserter Plus module. And in like fashion, you can see that how it works across the different pages, posts, categories, various post types, etc. Next up, let's go to the file editor. Now this is where you can actually modify your robots.txt and your .htaccess file. So you can see right now, just by viewing your robots.txt page, you can see the variables that are there. But if you wanted to, you could simply click to enable and use this area here to actually do that, instead of having to log in and use FTP in order to access your site. So this is really, it still allows you a much quicker way to access the file without having to log out and do that. Similarly, you can actually modify your .htaccess file here, but keep in mind that syntax is really important. So if you do this wrong, you can actually take the site down. So we only suggest that advanced users use this module. You could actually implement 301 redirects here as well. Okay, next up, we have the import-export module. And what this allows you to do is it simply allows you to export your settings that are globally in the site. And once you're done with that, so let's just go ahead and look at the title tag rewriter, for example. Give me a brief moment, and I'm going to open the file. And here's the file. So you can see that the first value is the post ID, for example, or the ID of the page or post. You can see the current title that's there. You can see the SEO Ultimate Pro meta key and the value. And this is just in nomenclature, it's the database, but it's simply saying that instead of the title being Schema Generator test, I might want to say my new optimized title. So you can see right now that article is present currently. So if I wanted to say my new article headline, and I can just simply save that. Now I can go back and import this file, and basically I would be doing this across the entire array of all my content. If I had 1,000 pages here, this is one way that I could essentially optimize all of my content from this one CSV file, and then go back I've only changed one for this example, but you get the point here. So I'm going to go ahead and import the CSV file. Now if I go to the title tag rewriter, which I can do from here, let's go ahead and look at that page that I just changed. Well, it's actually a post. There it is. My new article headline, you can see now, is changed from what I just did here on this CSV file. It usually helps when you get the right CSV file, but you get my point here. Here it is. So this is a very convenient way that you can actually use the Import-Export Manager to mass edit your title tags, your meta descriptions, your open graph, or your meta robots tags in mass. All right. Title tag rewriter, I just sort of showed you a preview of it, but it shows you have the option to change some of your default formats. You can actually tweak some of the settings here. It's pretty self-explanatory. For your pages or posts, you can go through and mass edit your titles. And so this is pretty slick. It's been there for years, but it's just a convenient way for you to save time. Same thing with your meta descriptions. A few optimal settings. Pages or posts, add your content, or simply use the mass editing feature that you can do in CSV. Here's your meta robots tags editor. You can basically go through and make sure that search engines are blocked from crawling different parts of the site. I like to let them crawl the category archives to push ranking factor. You get my point here. Save changes. Go to individual pages or posts. I can add my option if I want to prevent this page from being indexed, prevent the links on this page. If I want it to be indexed and I want the links to be followed on the page, I would leave it alone. If I wanted to block the links from being followed on the page, I could do that. I could actually, if the page were archived in Google and I wanted to remove it, I could say that I don't want this archived to begin with, or if it is archived, I can actually have it removed. So that's what these four options represent. And similarly, you can see how they work across the various pages, posts, categories, tags, etc. You also have the ability in your default settings or in your pages or posts, you can use the default or you can change it specifically for your categories as well. So if you wanted to prevent a category from being indexed, you have that option here. Otherwise, the default is it's going to refer back to whatever options you selected over here. All right, the miscellaneous module. This is where we put all the modules that really don't require their own settings, so to speak. So it's more of the hodgepodge, but this is where we can literally consolidate a variety of the different features. So if I wanted to create link rel canonical HTTP header requests, I could do that with one click. Very straightforward. If I know that I'm on a secure site, I'm just going to make all canonicals begin with that, or I can use basically the default or secure, depending on how the visitor is accessed. If I wanted to prevent having a number of archive pages, basically this automate 301 redirects, this is saying redirect requests for non-existent pagination. And all that means is instead of having like page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, after page 1, everything gets redirected back to the main folder. So that's all that's doing with that one click. If I wanted to add an href language default, like for example, en.us, english.us is the one that I could actually have that would add that to every page of the site. We're going to modify this a little more later on. We're going to add a little more robust functionality, but you can see there's the href language country codes here. You have the option to change your default text. You can actually tweak your nofollow attributes here if you want. You can actually remove the bases of URL. So for example, you can see that the word category is assigned in there by default in WordPress, but you can actually remove that by just removing your category tags to make the URL string a little more consistent. You have the ability to the same page or the same category or archive page fighting. You can always choose that. I would prefer, in my instance, to make sure that the page would always win, because pages are typically stronger. They don't roll out of the index. They're not on blog rolls and things of that nature. So this is where you would essentially make sure that the page would win. Or if you're using the silo builder, we always say we suggest that you use that to page or select this option in addition to the silo builder for page being the default. So in the event that your main silo page and your category is the same, which it will be, the page always gets the juice. All right. So you also have some additional options. You can use the share this button or add this buttons in the sharing facilitator. If you have the verification that you get back from Google or Blog or Bing Webmaster Tools, you can add that here to just sort of save time. Moving along. Now, in the Open Graph Plus area, this is where you would tweak all of your social settings. So this is where you create your fallback title description. You grab your image to determine, when this page gets loaded or any page of the site gets loaded. If you haven't assigned an image, a description, or a title, this is your fallback. You choose what you want your default Open Graph type to be. I would either say article or blog. Let's choose post for blogs and article for that. This is where you'd add your Facebook app ID. We do have documentation on how to do that. The default is excellent here. For your Twitter, the same thing. You could actually choose, I would like to say, summary with large image for default. For media, we're not really going to use the media option here, but you can assign it as a post type. Your Twitter site, you're going to use your @ID, your Twitter creator ID, your title, your main description, your main image. If you have video cards, you can actually put your iframe data in here, your app cards, etc. But this is where you would populate that data. This is where you actually put your titles, descriptions, and your Open Graph image in here. Page, media, etc. So this is basically when people share your content, you want to make sure that they're seeing the proper visuals and the proper titles of what you would prefer versus just grabbing something from randomly on the page. So that's what this is for. All right. Next up, we actually have the silo builder. The cool thing is that you actually go on the left side after you enable the silo builder, way back over here. Once it's actually enabled, this is where the manage settings option comes in, and you have the ability to either copy this short code and use this so you can actually implement that later on in the site itself. But if you're not familiar with how the silo builder works, so essentially you start with the home page as a default. Come in and actually add silos. Once you've added your silo, you can then have your categories. So in this case, I've got Schema Generator test. The category is the type, and the individual posts in this case are the actual types of the schema that I wanted to have tested. And so you can see how that works. You have the option, if I wanted to add something else or to add another silo, I would simply click home. And I would say, let's just say topic number 2. I create it, publish it, make it so. Now that I'm down here at topic number 2, I would then go to that same selection. You can hit draft or publish, but I'm going to say topic 2. 10.1. After I publish, you can see how the site architecture is being built out. Now, instead of you having to do this page by page, you see how quickly I was able to actually publish this content or publish my site architecture. So now you can see how easy it is for me to go in and build out my silo, my categories, and my supporting articles within each respective area. That's the value of the silo builder. And so I have the ability to create them in draft mode or to create them or actually publish the pages. Now, I prefer to do draft and then go add your content. Make sure that you've added all your content, you've optimized your meta titles, descriptions, your header tags, your content. You've already built the links out using the deep link Juggernaut. At that point, you can publish the content. It will get syndicated, and you're good to go. So there's other options inside of the silo builder that allow you to actually import. You can actually import from an XML file. So we'll be sharing the tools that will allow you to do this, where you could actually build them out that way. But you can also just use the manual silo builder. It's very quick. You can export your reports to see what is built out. You can export your silo map just so you can see how it looks. So you can actually see your architecture that you've built out over here from a glance. And so this will help you to literally structure your site in a way that makes the most sense for both your users as well as for search engines. And the cool thing about this is once you're inside of one of these areas, so if I just go into, going to need to add the silo builder widget. So let me just show you how to do that really quick. Once you have the silo builder active, you're going to need to go to Appearance Widgets. And then in your right sidebar, you're going to need to add the silo widget. So let me get rid of some of these. These are just sort of garbage. So this is a way that you can really button down your site architecture so that you're not bleeding ranking factor everywhere. Let's go to the silo builder. Drag to my sidebar. Call quick nav. Save changes. Now, let's go ahead and go back to the front end. And now you can see that I've got my Schema Generator test silo and my topic 2 silo. So now, from the standpoint of an end user, I click in to my quick nav. You can see that I'm inside the Schema Generator test silo. Now when I click type, now I'll see all the various types on the sidebar. So I can choose to bring that in on the widgets. I can choose how many are shown. Right now we have a number of different types, but you get the point. Once I go to that section, you'll see that the URL structure also changes. So we've got Schema Generator test /type /social profile /organization. Not certain if you can see that, so I'm going to go ahead and just copy it down here a little further so you can see what I'm talking about. So once I'm inside of the URL, you can see that this page is reflecting an extremely theme relevant site architecture. So I've got my Schema Generator test, my type, my social profile optimization. So if I'm trying to rank for any of those, you can see it's very straightforward that I'm reinforcing the topic. The other cool thing is that once I'm inside of a category, you'll notice that only the things that are relevant to that category appear. So if I were to drop down to a supporting article, everything else disappears and I'm only showing my own category. So we're sort of ring fencing this, and that's the value of silo. It's extremely powerful. So we'll provide some additional training on that, but I just want to give you an idea of how that works to give you a quick overview. We've covered the miscellaneous. Let me go ahead and look for a few other things. All right, so that's the silo builder wrap up. And now for my favorite, we actually have the Schema Generator. Okay, now I'd like to unleash or unveil rather our new global Schema Generator. Now I'm really excited about this. Previously we had used micro formats and RDFA, which is sort of an older format for doing linked data. And now the preferred method is JSON-LD, which is actually suggested for Google. And so this is going to increase the likelihood that everything validates. Not only validates, but it actually will surface in those results to quick snippets, etc. But how this module works is you navigate to the global schema generator. Once you're there, you simply choose what type of schema you'd like to apply. Now we have over 22 different types: article, book, breadcrumbs, course, critic review, data set, various types of schema. And each one of these has a variable. And so you can see that for local business, down here that's the local business type, I was going to go to travel agency, right? And then what you do here is we actually created a bunch of different posts so that we could test everything. And so I had one of our members go through and fill out all the schema, but this is basically what page you want to apply it to. So once you choose the type of schema that you want from the drop down, and then you go through and you choose the type, then you would actually populate all your different fields. Now right now the way that we're doing this is through an array, so rather than having a button where you can just actually grab your images, we will get around to that, but right now you have to open the media library. And the reason we did this is because so many different fields are changing, and by doing this in an array, basically what it allows us to do is if something changes, then we can change that without having to recode in a hard format. So basically, if I wanted to just copy the link for whatever the URL is, I'm going to X out, and I could just use that for populating things like URLs and links for that nature. So for example, I'll try this one more time. I'm going to go here to my image, touch an image, go to my copy link, or in this case, I'll just copy it here, close it, add that. So this is where I would do that, fill out all of my information on the page, publish, and then you'll see that it actually surfaces down below. If I wanted to use this on another site, for example, I could use it as a schema generator to do that as well. But we've populated all the fields, and as a result of that, we then go to the structured data testing tool, and we test this page where you can see exactly that there are no errors, 0 warnings, everything validates. You can see essentially how this would work. So you can see the rich card preview of what it is, and basically you've got valid schema. That's really awesome. And so looking at this from the perspective of an end user, it's an extremely powerful module. Like I said, you can actually apply it globally, and you have these various types of schema, and once you choose what type of schema you want, you then select what page, post, or post type that you want to attach it to. You click save, and then it will actually populate on the page level or post level of the page. And so if you'll notice here, you have a few more options, and you'll have the ability to take no action, to actually replace the schema, to append and add your own schema to it. So if you're very savvy and you want to add something else to it, or add additional code or tweak some things, you can append your schema or you can delete it. So that's what we've done with the global schema generator. And in addition to that, we also have added semantic tags. Semantic tags, which I did mention earlier, are very cool in the sense that they also will show up to disambiguate your content. So if I were to add travel agency, travel, and some other phrases that are related to this page, for example, then when I were to go into the structured data testing tool and add those, then you would see that it validates as well. So hopefully this has been a very informative overview for you. I did mention in the beginning that we do have additional premium modules that we'll be releasing shortly, and in which case you should stay tuned. We actually have an area inside the dashboard that I will go to now just to give you an idea of where you can locate that at. If you scroll all the way down to the premium modules, as they're added, you will see the modules appear here, and then you will simply be able to purchase them with their own license key. We're going to make them affordable so that it's really going to save you time. Now, these are for power users. We've got some things like semantic content analysis that will actually perform analysis and show you which entities and other things are on the page. We have some other elements like the schema jump link creator that's going to add schema for your questions and answers and all kinds of very cool things like that. So stay tuned for this. We're really happy that you've taken the time to enjoy this walkthrough of the SEO Ultimate Pro plugin. And so all I can say is stay tuned. This is Jeffrey Smith from SEO Ultimate Pros. Thank you for listening.